We're back. Grande Gato is in the building now. I'm about to take y'all to the office, La Oficina. Let y'all check it out. Just going back. We got the conference room right here. You know what I'm saying? Need to do any, business meetings, something of that nature, conduct some, business for some dinero. We do it in here. No. So this is where the deals go down, the big deals. But anyway, to the office. All right, we're in La Oficina. All right, let's get down to business. And by the way, I do have a window view, so I can see outside when I need to. I like my window view, It's nice to have a window view in your office. But anyway, me llamo Grande Gato, aka Superfly Priest. And I am El Presidente de North Carolina Street Heat. Basically, like I said, this is my office. I just acquired it this year in 2021. I was mobile. A lot of the other years I wasn't just stable in one place. I was going back and forth. Even did an overseas show, so I'm in Havana, Cuba. So it wasn't a good time for me to get an office before. But now that things are kind of, slowed up a little bit due to coronavirus and COVID-19 and all that, and the variant that has come up, you know what I'm saying? Things have slowed down a little bit, but I ain't complaining. We still performed this year, you know what I'm saying? Still got paid, so felt good, do a show, have some money, you know what I'm saying? And also, we did two shows. One early in the year, and then one just this month, the first of this month, October 2021, at the LJV on Coliseum, the outdoor clock tower stage for the Carolina Classic. But anyway, it's La Oficina, the wall, with a couple of, things up there that I wanted to highlight, in my office. I got the Buena Vida solo Spanish vinyl project, that was released not too long ago, several months ago. It's got some nice tracks on there, a little reggaeton, little Spanish rap, A lot of nice stuff on there, Also features not just myself, but also features Poco Pero, Menino, and also Bonita Senorita, Mi Esposa, on the song No Tu Sabes. And and speaking of No Tu Sabes, we came out with a shoe line for the North Carolina Street Heat brand. Yeah, y'all see that? No Tu Sabes by Grande Gato. Yeah, manufactured out of Italy, made these, you know what I'm saying? Just show y'all what they look like. Um, oh, actually, these, I put the wrong shoes in the wrong box, but y'all can still see these. It don't matter. It's all good. These are actually the Buena Vita tennis shoes. I put them in the wrong box, but so everybody can get a good look at them. Yeah, so these right here, these are called Buena Vitas. But the No 2 Saves look similar to these, but they're in like lime green, you know what I'm saying? So the No 2 Saves shoes, they go along with the theme that me, Bonita Senorita, and Poco Pero did for the song No 2 Saves. And these right here go along with the theme, you know what I'm saying, that I did for my song Buena Vita, which is actually featured on the Buena Vita vinyl back there. So, you know what I'm saying, these shoes actually go along with that record right there, you know what I'm saying? The Spanish vinyl, Buena Vita, you know what I'm saying? So I try to coincide, you know, everything together, the clothing with the music, with the books. Yep, and speaking of books, we actually have a North Carolina North Carolina Street Heat book. You know, just highlighting things in there throughout the years, different things, you know what I'm saying, talking about the music, talking about, you know, everything. Picture with me, my homie Jazz in there, when I had a show at the Poorhouse, me and his cousin, Real, aka John Noddy. You know what I'm saying? We had and also with Don Caban and Fire Marshal, we had a show at the Poorhouse nightclub in Raleigh off South Blunt Street, and you know what I'm saying? That was from that night. Yeah, we was rolling in the stretch Hummer. Me and Jazz was chilling after the show after everybody, you know what I'm saying, parted ways or whatnot. I hadn't seen Jazz in a minute, but he came through, you know what I'm saying, to check out the show. You know, I appreciate that, Jazz. It was 1 degree that night. It's funny, we had to stand outside the club owner, we got there early. Club owner made everybody stand out in front of the club, you know what I'm saying, for about 45 minutes, man. But I was good, you know what I'm saying. I was laid up, you know. It wasn't bothering me, but now the other artists, they were freezing their butts off, man. They was like cold, you know what I'm saying. I was like kind of laughing, not at them, but it was just funny because they was shivering, man. And I remember Don Caban asked me, he said, "Yo, JLT, you ain't cold?" I was like, "Nah, I'm good." Man, he had on a little windbreaker. He was, you know what I'm saying, shivering. You know what I'm saying? But that night we all rocked the show, you know what I'm saying? Me and Caban collaborated on his track, Esta Listo. John Noddy, you know what I'm saying, collaborated with me on my Spanish track, Par Ganar, you know what I'm saying, that's produced by Eddie Kane Jr., you know what I'm saying, shout out to Edward Coffee. And let's see who else. We also, me and Fire Marshal, performed a version of Par Ganar, you know what I'm saying, that was produced by NB of Ace Mob, you know what I'm saying, and shout out to him, NB, for producing that track, you know what I'm saying. And like I said, you know, it's a lot of good things that has happened over the years with the North Carolina Street Heat brand. You know what I'm saying? I've been trying to, you know, just really get it out there over the years. Because North Carolina has a lot of talent out here, but like anything else, man, you know, people don't want to recognize you unless you from a few certain states that have already, you know what I'm saying, been established throughout the years as putting out music artists and this and that. Not to say that, you know what I'm saying, nobody hasn't, you know what I'm saying, broke out because Petey Pablo did it, you know what I'm saying? He did it. There's a couple other people from North Carolina that did it, but they weren't natives of North Carolina, but they were born, you know, I guess you could say well, I don't know if they were born, but, you know, J. Cole, the Baby, people like that. But like I said, Petey Pablo, from what I know, because him and John Gotti and Jazz from the same hometown, he was like born and raised in North Carolina. So he's about the only one that, you know what I'm saying, that I would say really like broke through that door that's actually from here, North Carolina, you know, and he didn't like move from anywhere to here. So, you know, but since, you know, then there hasn't been too many people really that's, you know, like broke through on that big mainstream scale like Petey did. And that's why I was saying, you know, that were from here. So, you know what I'm saying, we were trying to, you know what I'm saying, put our mark out there, let people know, you know what I'm saying, that, hey, there's other people out here too from North Carolina that's representing, you know what I'm saying, it's got skills, you know what I'm saying, that's trying to put North Carolina on the map. And like I said, North Carolina street heat, one thing I can say, people know who we are. We've, you know what I'm saying, put records out, you know, I mean, all over, man. I ain't just talking about United States. Other countries too, they know North Carolina street heat is, you know what I'm saying. DJs have the wax, you know what I'm saying, the vinyl. That album right there, the one right there, North Carolina Street Heat, volume number 8, on the back of that has the picture of the place we performed over in Cuba at the Madrigal. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I'm saying, people in Havana, Cuba know about North Carolina Street Heat. You know, it's kind of funny because for, you know, us not to really have any major label backing behind us, not to have any, you know what I'm saying, like, you know, extreme, excessive radio play, like a lot of the other artists get. North Carolina Street Heat has made us mark. You know, I try my best, like I said, to represent to the fullest in every way. You know, whether it be English songs, Spanish songs, secular, you know what I'm saying, music to R&B, to even Christian rap music, whatever, you name it, to dance hall, go-go. I mean, I try to always represent, you know what I'm saying, North Carolina Street Heat to the fullest. You know what I'm saying? I even had my custom North Carolina Street Heat bling made, you know what I'm saying? Thanks to Ringmaster Jewelers for, you know what I'm saying, hooking me up with this right here. I appreciate that, you know. They looked out for me. You know, so, I mean, like I said, from the clothing to the music, to the books, I mean, you know, to the shows, we just tried to represent. North Carolina Street Heat has always been a kind of a fine line between underground and mainstream. We weren't quite so underground to where mainstream people didn't know us, because mainstream people, like I said, knew who we were. I was getting, you know what I'm saying, our records played on, you know, on stations like 102 Jams. You know what I'm saying, I got John Gotti's record played on there, Chocolate Tie. DJ Sound Machine used to spin that. It was in rotation for a minute when Sound Machine was doing Smash City with Young G and Showdown. Let's see. And of course, shout out to Waleed. Waleed, you know what I'm saying, knew about North Carolina Street Heat, what we was trying to do. He was doing his thing with his other records, indie label. So, you know what I'm saying, it's like, we were getting spins on, Sound Machine was spinning my stuff, you know, Self-Analyzation. He also spent that record on Smash City. But even before that, some years before Sound Machine got there to 102 Jams, they played my song Parganar, my Spanish joint, and not the one that you know, came later by other, that was remixed by other producers. On the beat that I produced for Parganar had a little guitar to it. you know what I'm saying, bass guitar mix from my album, Rockin' the NC, True Leader. They played that on 102 Jams. I'll never forget that. All Spanish now. This was back before, you know, Spanish rap was even popping like that. But they played my joint on 102 Jams, and I was like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I appreciate that. Man, you know what I'm saying? They showed me some love for real. But you know what I'm saying? Then I had radio stations, you know what I'm saying, in other countries sending me messages, you know, your song was getting played over, you know, my song Verdad, the reggaeton song, was getting played over in Bogota, Colombia. You know what I'm saying? Then I was getting stuff played over in Brazil. Even had a DJ that me and him used to talk all the time. You know what I'm saying? DJ Spin Eduardo, he was spinning, you know what I'm saying, our stuff over there in Brazil. He even spun some stuff for the Olympics, you know what I'm saying, for his thing. But, you know what I'm saying, so we appreciated him just, you know what I'm saying, representing and showing people our stuff up on his Facebook page over there in Brazil. I mean, you know, we had people in the UK, DJ, you know what I'm saying, Luke Skywalker, you know what I'm saying, not Luke, like the actor, Loop, like when you loop a record over, you know, over and over, DJ Luke Skywalker, you know what I'm saying, he actually did some cuts on some tracks for us, and you know what I'm saying, he was featured on one of the North Carolina Street Heat vinyls as well, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, he showed us love, you know what I'm saying? I even had DJ DeVito from the Big Apple, upstate New York, you know what I'm saying? DJ DeVito did a track with me and John Noddy called the NC Posse Cut. And I featured that actually on the same vinyl that has the Cuba stuff on the other side, that was showing the Cuba performance on the other side. But that New York cut with DJ DeVito, you know what I'm saying, and John Noddy and myself is featured on that. So, you know what I'm saying, we was making connects, you know what I'm saying, a little bit everywhere. You know, I had, you know, dancehall artists, DJs playing Fire Marshal stuff, Clovis Douglas, who did dancehall and was with North Carolina Street Heat, originally from St. Kitts, you know what I'm saying? I had put him out on several vinyl projects as well, so, you know, we were hitting that reggae market too with his stuff, you know what I'm saying? And I had him perform at a club here in Winston-Salem called Ziggy's. You know, the old Ziggy's, not the new Ziggy's that everybody was used to, which is now the Ramcat. The old Ziggy's, you know, the old Ziggy's had that different vibe to it, you know what I'm saying? It really had like that grassroots feel. KRS-One used to come through there and perform all the time, all these dance hall artists. Because, you know, I know KRS-One is rap, but he still would incorporate, you know what I'm saying, a little dance hall flavor in there. Wah-da-da-day, wah-da-da-da-day, hey, you know. But they'd have like, you know what I'm saying, Beanie Man would come through there, Sizzler would come through there. Shoot, they had, who else? Elephant Man, I think, came through there one time. They had a bunch of reggae artists that have come to Sean Paul, I think, came through there one time. I mean, it's so many artists throughout the years that have come through Ziggy's. People, talk to anybody who knows anything about the music scene in Winston-Salem, aka the Trey 4. They'll tell you those Ziggy's, man. That was the place. And we even had etched, you know, something in the walls that night after Fire Marshal show that I got him at Ziggy's. You know what I'm saying? And he had his boy with him, Kaya. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Kaya, you know what I'm saying? Hope you feeling Ari. You know what I'm saying? Holler at you in a minute. But yeah, so like I said, North Carolina Street Heat, man. We've been out there. We've been out there from all angles. I mean, you know, like I said, we, you know what I'm saying, we're really keeping it, you know what I'm saying, alive on the vinyl tip especially. Even when people, you know what I'm saying, was wondering like, why y'all keep pressing stuff up on vinyl? I was like, well, we got stuff on iTunes too, and regular CDs when regular CDs were still being used. I mean, now nobody uses physical CDs anymore. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's on the, you know what I'm saying, streaming tip, downloading tip and all that, though, which is why we got our iTunes stuff out there and stuff on Tidal and stuff like that. But Amazon. But I still always kept pressing stuff up on vinyl. And it's funny because anybody that watches shows like Jimmy Fallon's show, late night show with Jimmy Fallon, whenever he has people on there, these new artists, you know what I'm saying? He'll have, you know what I'm saying? Somebody on there, let's say he has Nas on there. Nas brings some vinyl. He had Jay-Z on there. Jay-Z will bring some vinyl. I saw, what's his name? Travis Scott and Migos and all them, they brought vinyl. Even when 2 Chainz had brought out his new album with a native from North Carolina, E. Sud, DJ E. Sud, and they had their vinyl album. Jimmy Fallon always holds up vinyl albums. These artists don't bring CDs on there. It's 2021, and you see what I'm saying? They bringing their vinyl albums up there. So see, I wasn't off the mark when I was doing that. See, I've been doing that. I ain't never stopped. I've been pressing up vinyl since 2001. See, you do the math. I ain't never stopped. So North Carolina Street Heat's catalog is deep when it comes to, you know what I'm saying, vinyl, you know what I'm saying, vinyl music. That's why I said I was keeping it 100, or in Spanish, CN, you know what I'm saying? I was keeping it CN for real, because it's like, you know, I ain't never stopped doing vinyl, even when everybody else was like, you know what I'm saying, hating on vinyl or whatnot. I was like, nah, vinyl is how it all started, on 2 turntables and a mic. You know what I'm saying? I kept it true, you know what I'm saying? And still keeping it true, even in this new age, you know what I'm saying? I've adapted to the new sound and all that, but still keeping it, you know what I'm saying, the same as always, the grassroots way, like we always did it. But just to give y'all a little history, though, of how it all started, me and Jazz went to NC State together. The guy that was pictured in the, you know what I'm saying, the limo with me. This man right here. At NC State, me and him, you know what I'm saying, we were hanging partners or whatnot, and he, you know, he used to rap. And we had a group together. It was me, Jazz, a guy named Kevin Brody, Chad Simmons, and another guy named Andre, and you know what I'm saying, Andre Littlejohn. So we all had the group, you know what I'm saying, and we would perform, and Jazz would be rapping, you know what I'm saying, doing his thing. I wasn't doing any lyrics at the time. I wasn't even an artist. I was a DJ. So I was on the turntables, you know what I'm saying. But eventually, Jazz stopped rapping, you know what I'm saying, because me and him had went on later on, you know what I'm saying, to branch out, trying to get into the music industry, you know what I'm saying. But Jazz, for whatever reason, you know, he kind of was like, you know, I ain't gonna really rap no more. And I was like, okay. But he said, I want to turn you on to somebody. He said, my cousin. He said, my cousin's nice. And I said, okay. I said, you know, let's meet him and see what's up. So Jazz was living in some apartments off of Blue Ridge Road, Raleigh Road in Raleigh. And so anyway, right near Glen, it's almost like near Glenwood Avenue. You got to go that straight down until you get to the intersection of Blue Ridge and Glenwood. But the apartments he stayed in, I forgot the name of them. But anyway, we was over at Jazz's apartment, and you know, his cousin was over there. He was like, JOT, this is my cousin Darrell. And I was like, all right. And he was like, he go by Real Nice. And I was like, okay, Real Nice. And I was like, spit a little something. You know, he did. I was like, yeah, your cousin nice, man. I was like, your cousin nice, real nice. So anyway, we got together, and we ended up recording in this studio in Durham called Fat Tracks. Shout out to, you know, Blair, Leslie Blair, for, you know, doing the, you know, recording engineering for us at his studio. And we recorded like this song called Up the Hill. We actually did it for, recorded for a talent show. Because Darrell Nice, a.k.a. John Notty, was going to Central at the time. And, so we was like, okay, he told us about some talent show that was there. He wanted to enter it. So anyway, we did that song Up the Hill, and we won. You know what I'm saying? We won the joint. So, you know what I'm saying? And then this is where we met Smarty Fresh, a.k.a. Don Caban, who later became, a person that was also featured a lot on the North Carolina Street Heat Bound. We met Caban, and what's funny is there's a lot of people out here that when I used to do stuff, they would always say, yeah, John Notty, you know what I'm saying? He did stuff with me and da-da-da and da-da-da. And I was like, yeah, but what people don't understand, though, I was the first person that ever worked with John Notty musically, me and Jazz. Before other people that he's worked with, I was the first. You know what I'm saying? And, you know what I'm saying? That's why I'm saying a lot of people don't understand. A lot of these producers and rappers, they talking to me like I don't know him. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm sitting there thinking I worked with him before y'all came along, before y'all was even in the picture. You know what I'm saying? Me and Jazz were the first, you know what I'm saying, to work with him. So that's why I said, our connection as far as music goes way back, you know what I'm saying, to that Central talent show where it all first started. And like I said, we won. Then we've started recording other music tracks as well. And then, like I said, Don Caban came on, and him and John Notty partnered up. And then they brought in another guy from Hempstead, New Jersey, Buddha Man, and brought him in. So then, you know what I'm saying, they did a song, and it was called Nasty Niggas. That's what it was called. And, you know what I'm saying? So they did that track. And, it was raw. I was sitting there in the studio while they were doing it, and I was like, God, dog. I was like, they killing this track. You know what I'm saying? They were doing it like, I was sitting there thinking, man, yeah, this is what I'm talking about. So anyway, they recorded some more stuff. And, then it kind of was a thing where I had got back in school because I was DJing and stuff. I really wasn't hitting the books like I was supposed to, not because I wasn't trying to hit the books, but I would be so tired after shows and recording all this stuff. It was hard for me, you know what I'm saying, to do my books. So I had made up my mind. I said, I'm here at NC State. I said, I got to graduate, man. So I said, let me go ahead and get myself together, go ahead and knock this out, and then I'll get back to the music. Well, around this time, man, I had kind of like a spiritual awakening, a calling. You know what I'm saying? I felt like God had called me, and, you know what I'm saying, my mind started thinking in a different direction and everything. And this was around the time when I started rapping and getting on the mic. So I was kind of like thinking, okay, I used to listen to Rakim. You know what I'm saying? Rakim was always on kind of like, that balance of I rock the mic and party music, but I also do like spiritual enlightening music. So I was doing that too, but he was doing it from a Muslim point of view. I was doing it from a Christian point of view. So, you know what I'm saying? But still on that same tip. So, you know what I'm saying? And Rakim, man, he used to, everybody knows, he used to get radio play. He used to do shows. I mean, guys in the streets would be bumping this stuff, man. And pretty soon, it started happening like that for me. I graduated from NC State. I put out this track called Self-Analyzation. And I had it on, on CD, and I let a couple of store owners hear it. They were like, we want that. They were like, get us, several copies of that. We'll put that in the store like ASAP. So I was like, cool, you know what I'm saying? They were feeling it. And like I said, this was, when I first came out rapping, I wasn't even a rapper like that, but they was feeling it. So I said, okay. So I put it in the stores, and to make a long story short, I ended up, you know what I'm saying, trying to clear the sample. It was a Rod Temperton sample. And at first, you know what I'm saying, when I tried to do it way back in 1996, where Rod Temperton wasn't having it, he didn't want nobody sampling his music. So, I mean, you know, so it was what it was. So I had to sit there and I had to pull, you know what I'm saying, the song out from all the stores and everything. And I was like, dang, you know, just when I had one where everybody was feeling it, you know what I'm saying, that I said, yeah, this probably would have did good. Radio play, you know what I'm saying, radio was playing it. But, hey, everything happens for a reason. But fast forward, I had started up the label by then. I had already graduated from school. I was the first artist that I was putting out on my JOT Records label. But then I said, you know, I still remember, you know what I'm saying, all the people that I worked with before. And I was like, how can I incorporate, you know, what I'm doing with, you know, everybody else? And I said, I could come up with a collaborative group project. And I said, well, what am I gonna call it though? I said, North Carolina Street Heat. Yeah. I said, because these people that I'm, you know, working with, I said, they fire, straight fire, you know, bringing that heat. We all from North Carolina. I said, all right, cool. I said, you know, John Noddy, Don Cabine, you know what I'm saying? And the producers I was working with, you know what I'm saying? So, okay. I said, let's do it. I said, this is what I'm gonna do. I put it out, North Carolina Street Heat. And these were the vinyl projects. And I did put out some North Carolina Street Heat CD projects too, and even some digital ones, but mainly the North Carolina Street Heat projects on vinyl, you know, so. But anyway, so that's how North Carolina Street Heat kind of came into existence. Let me close this window for a minute. It's getting dark now. All right, there we go. But anyway, so, I mean, you know, I sat there and just started, you know what I'm saying, featuring, excuse me, artists on the vinyl. The first track, the very first vinyl, the North Carolina Street Heat Volume 1, I had Cabine on there. John Noddy actually wasn't on the first one, but he was on the second one, but Cabine was on the first one. And I had met this female rapper by the name of Poison, the female MC. Met her through one of my homies. My friend Rob introduced me to a guy named Twan, and Twan introduced me to Poison. And so anyway, I remember when I first heard, you know, Twan telling me about it, he was like, well, he said, you know, she rap, man, but, you know, she need a little work, this and that and that. I said, all right, well, now I hear. And so I heard her, and me and her actually ended up doing a song together called Hot Shots. And, you know, I'll never forget, you know, the song, you know what I'm saying, it was a pretty decent track, you know. It's one of those tracks, you know what I'm saying, that when you listen to it, you know what I'm saying, it came off right, you know. She, you know what I'm saying, she polished herself up and she did a thing on there, you know what I'm saying. I did kind of like a, you know what I'm saying, little metaphorical rap on there where it sounds like I'm talking about one thing, but I'm really talking about another, you know. So, but to make a long story short, I also had a song on that same record with her and Cabine. Cabine had this track that he had done, and you know what I'm saying, it was like along the lines of some, you know, Luther Campbell, Too Loud Crew, you know, type material that they were talking about on, you know, the record. And everybody knows what Uncle Luke talked about, you know what I'm saying, on his records, you know what I'm saying. He got raw, explicit for the time period. I mean, nowadays, that's not explicit at all, but I'm saying, well, for back then, This was 2001 when they dropped this. And so anyway, I remember when Caban first let me hear it, I was like, yo, man, we gotta record this, man. And we was actually over Twan's, you know what I'm saying? I had a little multi-track over there that I used to keep in the car. And you know what I'm saying? And so Caban was over there, you know what I'm saying, doing his thing, you know what I'm saying, medicating and all that. So then he was like, all right, I'm gonna go ahead, and he said, I'm gonna lay it down, JLT. So he laid it down. Man, I was like, phew. I was like, it's fire, man. So anyway, I remember I saw Poison like a week later, and she was, you know what I'm saying, asked me, she saw the multi-track, and she was like, well, what's on that? I said, I'll let you hear that. I said, it's one of the guys that I, you know, done some stuff with. I said, you know, check it out. And so I played it. And she heard that track, man, and she was like, I want to get on that track with him. I was like, cool. She started writing right then. It was like a response to what he said. So it was like one of them thing, you know, like a male female response type record. He said something, then she said something back, and blah 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 blah. It was kind of it was neat the way it worked out, and you know what I'm saying, like they matching each other's energy on there. So we featured that track on there. And man, I remember I used to take that to parties and let DJs hear it, and regular people in the streets. People would go crazy over that song, man. So I said, you know what? I need to send this to some people. I said, and try. I said, heck, I said, since it sounds like some Luke-ish 2000, you know, like 2 Live Crew material, I said, I'll send it to Luke. So I remember I sent the record to Luke Records. And, you know, I ain't think nothing. I was like, yeah, you know, probably ain't gonna hear nothing back, but oh well, you know, no biggie. At least I said, at least they got the record, you know what I'm saying? Just getting our name out there, whether they do something with it or not. But anyway, so I get a call back, and I remember Luke had a receptionist assistant for the label. Her name was Makita. And she was like, my name is Makita. I'm from Luke Records. She said, I wanted to give you a call back. Luke told me to call you. She said, he likes your song. I already knew what song they were talking about when, you know what I'm saying. She said that. And I was like, yeah, that song on side A, #1, Oral Session, Don Caban and Poison the Female MC. She said, yeah, that's the one. And I said, yeah. She was like, Luke wants to know if y'all would be interested in coming down to Florida, Miami, and perform in the annual Umoja Festival that he does, that he's a part of. I was like, yeah. I was like, oh yeah. Like, so we ended up talking out, you know, some terms with everything, and ironing out the details, and then next thing you know, shoot, I sat there and booked flights for the whole team to fly down there, you know what I'm saying? It was me, and but the thing is, the rest of the crew ended up driving because one of the producers, Corey Taylor, shout out to Cut, you know what I'm saying? He, you know what I'm saying, was driving, and so Caban rode with him, Poison rode with him, and you know what I'm saying, then John Noddy came with this other guy, you know what I'm saying, but we all ended up, and then I flew down there, and then a guy named Chance, Wayne White, that went to NC State with me, he was doing Christian rap at the time, you know what I'm saying, he flew down to separate flight from me. He had, you know, booked his flight on his own. But anyway, to make a long story short, got down there and we did the show. But Poison didn't want to do the show. She saw some young youth out there in the audience. And she was like, man, there's kids out there. And she was like, you know what I'm saying, I ain't going to perform that song. You know, she got kids too, and I guess she, you know what I'm saying? It was one of those things, I don't know if it was the mother instinct inside her said, you know, nah, I wouldn't want my, you know, my daughter to hear this, so I don't want other kids to hear it. But she didn't perform it. But Don Caban ended up performing a track that he did that was produced by Corey Taylor that I mentioned earlier. you know, in the club. Kaban rocked it. Then John Noddy did his thing, you know what I'm saying, and got up there and rocked it. You know what I'm saying? I got up there, did my Spanish joint, Parganar. You know what I'm saying? I rocked it. And then, you know what I'm saying? Afterwards, Makita came up and said, y'all, she said, y'all did y'all's thing. She was like, that was a nice show. So, you know, I was like, cool. I was thinking, you know what I'm saying? Hey, yeah, we need to, you know what I'm saying, maybe talk out some, you know, things, maybe get a subsidiary deal type thing going or whatnot. But that didn't fall through, you know what I'm saying? So I kept on going business as usual, you know what I'm saying? Ain't no stopping things here. So through the years, kept putting out, you know what I'm saying, the vinyl projects. And one day when I was on the streets of Raleigh, at one of the old record store locations, School Kids Records on Hillsborough Street, right across from NC State, where I told you I went to college. I saw this guy, I was playing some dance hall, Cardinal Official, in my car. And so anyway, the guy, he walks up to my car, I saw him, he's like, you listen to reggae and dance hall? I said, yeah. He said, I do dance hall and reggae. I said, all right, what you go by? He said, Fire Marshal. And I said, all right. I said, okay, Fire Marshal, you know what I'm saying? I said, you know, I said, let me hear something. He did a little something. I said, yeah, I'm feeling that. So anyway, he wanted to, you know what I'm saying? I told him I showed him one of the North Carolina Street Vinyls. I said, yeah, I just put some of these in that store right there. I said, you know, I put all this out. I said, you know what I'm saying? You ought to come holler at me. I said, I don't have no dance hall artists on there, you know what I'm saying? No island artists, because he said he was from St. Kitts. I said, you know, we ought to talk, see what can happen. So anyway, but I told him, I said, it's just one thing. I said, I already got money invested into these records right here, so I got to promote this stuff. I said, I can't just put everything down, start working with you, and I got money invested in my other projects. So I said, if you can wait till next year, I think this was like April of the year that I was talking to him. So I was telling him basically to wait almost a whole nother year, almost 12 months, not quite 12 months, but you know what I'm saying? It was not too far from that many months. I mean, you know, I was like, but if you can hold off and wait, I said, I'm a man of my word. I said, I'm going to get back with you. We'll do some things. And so I don't know if he believed me or not, but he said, all right, he gave me his number. As being a man of my word, I called him back at the beginning of that next year. Started talking to him. I was like, look, I said, you know what I'm saying? Let's get together. Let me hear what you got. He had recorded a track, a couple of tracks actually, since the time I had talked to him a year before. And he let me hear the song Pull a Pull, rugged dance hall track. I was high energy. I was like, yeah. I said, yeah, I feel that. Then he let me hear Blood and Fire Warriors, Bam Bam Ba Bam Bing, Island Calypso sounding type joint. Ladies love that joint. See, I said, yo, see, you've been working. I said, now let me show you what happens when hard work meets opportunity. I've said, I'm about to drop another North Carolina Street Heat record. I said, perfect timing, man. I said, I'm going to go ahead because I said, I want to sign you to my label. Because at the time, John Noddy had signed to my label. And aside from me and John Noddy, I didn't have any other artists like signed under contract, like official contract signed to my label. I had a lot of artists I was working with, but the only artist that was officially signed by contract to my JOT Records indie label was John Noddy, aka The Real Nice, aka Real Nice at the time. So I told Fire Marshal, I said, I want you on my label. So I whipped out the contract, you know what I'm saying? He signed it, as soon as that happened, we got the business part out the way. Said, let's put in the work. Let's go ahead. I went ahead and put those tracks that he had onto an album. Then we went ahead and put that album out, you know what I'm saying? Put it out, you know what I'm saying? And it was out on iTunes, you know what I'm saying? Then started putting them on different vinyl projects. Then I started getting them some shows. I got him a Ziggy show in Winston-Salem. It was other dance hall and roots reggae artists too, not just dance hall, but roots reggae artists performing. But I got him in on that show. Then, like I said, I got him in on the show at the Poorhouse nightclub. You know what I'm saying? And you know, things, you know what I'm saying, looking real nice. Like I said, because we had a balance of music on the North Carolina Street Heat projects. John Noddy was bringing like that, you know what I'm saying, real hip hop. You know, Don Caban was bringing real hip hop too, but he was bringing it from a different angle, because he would always do stuff like, you know what I'm saying, English and then Spanish, because he's half black, half Latino. Don Caban is Smarty Fresh. So, you know what I'm saying, he would bring that aspect to it. Then we had, like I said, Fire Marshal bringing the dance hall aspect to it. And then me, I was bringing, like, you know what I'm saying, that kind of, like I said, the balance of party, kind of club joints. Not explicit lyrics though, but still that feel of the track. And also, but yet, I was bringing that spiritual enlightenment with my music too. And then later on down the line, I met my future wife, who's now actually my wife, Miss Krista, aka Bonita Senorita. And she brought the R&B element. But now, before I had actually met her, I had worked with another R&B artist. It was actually a young lady that I went to school with at college at NC State. Her name was Yolanda Rogers, but she went by Y.O. And I had a song of hers that she had let me hear, featured on one of the vinyl North Carolina Street Heat projects. And actually, I talked about that in this book too. And I actually booked Yolanda for a paid gig at this nightclub in Winston-Salem called Tony's. And you know what I'm saying? But this is Yolanda right here that went to NC State with me, you know, and I was talking about how I featured her, you know what I'm saying, on the North Carolina Street Heat vinyl, got her that, you know, gig at Tony's, you know what I'm saying? She did the song that was on the vinyl. And they actually, you know what I'm saying, they was loving her joint. So I told her, I said, look, you know, after the performance and everything, I told her, I said, look, they liked you. They really liked you. I'm saying they want you back. I said, they want you to come back, because I think she had performed like it. This was around about maybe November, I think. So I was like, or it might have been a little bit September. I can't remember if it was September, October, November. It was one of those months. And they were like, you know, we wanted to come back, you know what I'm saying, for the holidays. And I said, they wanted to come back, you know, perform Christmas. You know, since I said, hey, yo, they feeling you. I said, they want you to come back. And just like this gig, I said, you going to get paid. I said, they want you. And I remember Yolanda was like, well, I can't make it. And I was like, huh? I was like, your career's about to pop off. I'm like, you already, you know what I'm saying, in demand at these clubs. And I was like, she's like, I got to be with my family. So I was like, all right, you know, I I understood what she was saying. You know, I was like, okay, she got to be with her family with the holidays, da-da-da-da. But I was like, but you know, I was like, the music industry is like that, you know what I'm saying? Especially when you starting out, you got to make some sacrifices. I mean, if you're trying to really make it. So, but make a long story short, I don't believe in making anybody do anything that they don't want to do. So she moved on, and, you know, really I don't know, music-wise, if she decided to leave it alone or whatnot, because I lost track with her after that. But then along came, like I said, Miss Krista, a.k.a. Bonita Senorita, and she was doing R&B. So then I booked her at that same club years later, you know what I'm saying, for a paid gig. And we did, you know, one of the songs that we had together up in there. And, you know what I'm saying? And, yeah, people was feeling it, you know what I'm saying? So after that, for a while, Tony, you know what I'm saying, whenever I came out with a new vinyl project, I hit him off. He was the club on the Tony Couch. Shout out to Tony Couch. You know, Tony is in Winston. He retired now, but he still got his club name. But some other guys got it now, you know what I'm saying? But it's still the Tony's brand, you know what I'm saying, the name. And but Tony would have his DJ play every project that I would bring to him up in the club. So, you know what I'm saying, Tony was showing us a lot of love, and I appreciate that, you know what I'm saying? Because what people don't know about Tony's is one of them nightclubs that had been around since I was in high school. Now, I was in high school back in 1989. That was the year I graduated from high school. So now you wrap your mind around this. That man just retired. It's 2021 now. He retired maybe about, 3 years ago, maybe? We talking about like probably 2018. You see what I'm saying? That man had a long run with his club, man. Nightclubs don't even last that long, man. And he had a long run with his club. Didn't really have problems like that. You didn't really hear about, you know what I'm saying, no people out getting killed up at his club, or, you know what I'm saying, no just crazy mess, you know what I'm saying. I mean, he had his little, you know, what do you call it? Little things that would pop up that most clubs encounter, you know what I'm saying, but nothing major, serious like that. So, you know, that man had a long, successful run. And but anyway, he showed us a lot of love by playing our music up in his clubs and stuff. And I appreciate him for that. But so Miss Crystal, aka Bonita Senorita, is now in the picture. And I started featuring her not just on vinyl, but on CD projects, physical CDs, and then eventually on iTunes projects, you know what I'm saying? And Miss Crystal would not only just do like secular R&B, but she wasn't doing like the explicit R&B, you know what I'm saying? Nothing explicit. Her R&B was like, you know what I'm saying, more along those lines of, you know, Cheryl Lynn, you know that got to be real, you know, that type of R&B, you know what I'm saying, that R&B that ain't talking about nothing explicit. It's just some good old singing, you know what I'm saying, good old fashioned singing over some dance tracks, you know what I'm saying, some club tracks, you know. So Miss Crystal, she was doing those type of songs, but then, you know, she would flip it, and I had her doing Christian R&B songs too. And you know what I'm saying? So and we even, you know, I started, you know, writing songs for, I was ghostwriting a lot of songs for, and I even started writing some songs in Spanish for her so she could perform with me on some Spanish tracks. And that worked out real good, you know what I'm saying? And we do that now to this day. In fact, she and I were the ones who went over to Havana, Cuba, and performed those Spanish tracks, you know what I'm saying, over there at the Madrigal. And we have been performing tracks in Miami and North Carolina for years. So, you know what I'm saying, it was just that next step. You know, it was destined to elevate, and we took it overseas. But, yeah, so like I said, you know, throughout the years, North Carolina Street Heat has really, like I said, been one of those things that I wanted to make sure people knew about us. Because I said North Carolina's got a lot of talent, man. A lot of talent. I always represent North Carolina to the fullest. I was never ashamed of North Carolina. Because I know a lot of people back in the day, to make it, they felt like they couldn't really tell nobody they came from North Carolina. They couldn't really rep North Carolina like that. They always, if they went somewhere like New York or LA, they would make sure they kind of blended in, kind of like as if they were from there. You know, you wouldn't even hear them mention nothing about being from North Carolina or, you know, wear anything that represents North Carolina. But see, everything I do, I represent North Carolina. I mean, all my vinyl projects were named North Carolina Street Heat. Clothing I wear, North Carolina Street Heat. You know what I'm saying? The bling I wear, North Carolina Street Heat. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Even the books, North Carolina Street Heat. CDs, always represent North Carolina Street Heat. And I tell you, even the kicks, like I mentioned before. I was born and raised in North Carolina. North Carolina's who made me. You know what I'm saying? Why would I front on North Carolina? Why would I be ashamed to mention and rep North Carolina? I told you when I was over there in Havana, Cuba performing, I was talking about North Carolina Street Heat. Yeah. So I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's what I felt like I wanted to do, and I felt like I accomplished that. You know what I'm saying? Still got a lot more stuff we gonna do, but I accomplished my goal of getting that name out there. You know what I'm saying? A lot of artists, man, a lot of artists and DJs and labels that, you know what I'm saying, that you all are familiar with. You know what I'm saying? They know about us, you know, they have our stuff. And like I said, at the end of the day, you know, if you don't sit there and try and go do it, then I'm saying, you know, you ain't got nobody to blame but yourself if nothing happened. So I ain't never been that type of person. I'm not built that way. I'm built to grind. I'm built to succeed. And I'm self-made. That's one thing that's helped me out throughout the years too. Self-sufficient. Ain't nobody, no major label backing me. You know what I'm saying? I don't really have no business partners or nothing like that. Yeah, this is all me. North Carolina Street, he was my brainchild, my baby, you know what I'm saying? I nurtured it, brought it into existence, made it to what it is now, and now made it official. Yeah, even got the North Carolina Street Heat office. So on that note, you know what I'm saying? It's gonna be more to come from North Carolina Street Heat, but you know what I'm saying? Anybody want to check us out? You know what I'm saying? You can always go to the website, NorthCarolinaStreetHeat.com. You can check out the North Carolina Street Heat, you know, iTunes albums, you know what I'm saying, on iTunes. You know, and like I said, man, hey, we out here, we grinding, you know what I'm saying? Grande Gato, a.k.a. Superfly Priest, El Presidente, de North Carolina Street Heat. Yeah, I'm out. 1.